We're going to move into the Luminary presentation. I'd like to have the National Program Director for Luminary, Terri Lynn Morrison, and the founder and CEO of Luminary, Kelly Lendsay. Come on up.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Terri Lynn Morrison. I'm a Mi'kmaq from the East Coast. My community is Listigutch. Really happy to be here with you today with my co-worker, Kelly. And what we're going to talk about is what we're doing at Luminary, which is a new organization, not that new. We'll give you a little bit of the history, but we'll walk you through a presentation. And during our presentation, we know it's before lunch. We want to be engaging, so we're asking everybody to grab your cell phones. We do have a Slido, some survey questions that we'll be putting up on the screen, so we want you guys to engage so that we can have an interactive presentation. I'm not sure where the, oh, Kelly, can you grab the, yeah, sorry. So we'll get started. So what we're going to talk about today are the innovation engagement gaps. An Indigenous response. We'll introduce you to Luminary. We'll talk about engaging Indigenous businesses and business schools and how AFIs and businesses can align and benefit. We'll talk about engagement opportunities for businesses and curriculum and case studies, research collaborations, knowledge networks, and intellectual property, artificial intelligence. So what you see here is traditional Western knowledge and innovation. So Indigenous people have been innovating for years. We have been, snowshoes. You see the ulu, birch bark canoes. It's part of who we are and part of what we do. We have a team at Luminary, a small but mighty team. So I'm the Chief Program Officer. You'll see the rest of our staff there going from left to right, right over to Kelly, who's the Chief Executive Transformation Officer. And what we're talking about here is the innovation engagement gap. So when we talk about reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, it won't happen without economic reconciliation. But what's missing is the research component. So there is a jaded view of research. It's been done on us and not with us. Research approaches are broken, and we need Indigenous-led initiatives. Nothing about us without us. So our first Slido is up on the screen, and what we want to know is, have you or your organization participated in research with an Indigenous partner, a university, college, or other academic institutions? So if you scan the QR code, it'll take you up. It's anonymous, so we don't know who you are. See, the results are live, so we're already getting some engagement. That's awesome. Looks like we have 75% saying that, or 77, okay, the numbers are changing, but we'll give it a couple of seconds. But really, like we said, have your organization participated in research with Indigenous partner, university, college, or other academic institutions? So interesting results there. So if you have partnered with organizations, we'd love to talk to you. So please come and introduce yourselves during lunch or later on today. And if you haven't or you're not sure, we're always here to chat as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to continue on with the presentation.
70%. That's excellent. And so we want to connect with you and learn how you've been leveraging. I'm Kelly Lendsay, and I want to tell you about this journey. And this NAC has been on this journey since 2019, where this concept was started to really, how do we harness research and innovation? And you know the image that Terri Lynn showed? Richard, we dined last night with your wife Geraldine, and you saw the waka and the kopa. Those are Maori creations, inventions, and innovation. The porcupine grass in Australia was used to create a thermal resin. We were innovating the birch bark canoe to freighter canoes. So all of this was around economic well-being. And so innovation's not new, but connecting today with the university, the college, the academic community to harness economic innovation on our Indigenous priorities, that's what the concept was about in 2019. In 2020, we brought together over 150 Luminary partners. There was people like Rocky Sinclair, Terry Brosniak, Pam Larson, and other folks who participated in co-designing a strategy. That strategy was launched and developed through 2021 with Marie Delorme and I facilitating this through like a dozen engagement sessions. We had a plan, but we had no funding. But we did a number of projects, agri-food and others, throughout 21, 22, 23, 24. And in 2022, we applied to what was called the Strategic Science Fund. And it was for non-university, non-college players that were doing interesting ideas or were proposing to do interesting things in the innovation space. And NACA, Shannon, provided one of the 22 letters of support. So that's the journey, and we were lucky. We got 5 years of funding. We were the first Indigenous initiative to break through and get funding through Innovation, Science, Economic Development, which is responsible for the research arm of funding up research in this country. We asked for 24.7, we got 4, which allows me to hire great talent like this, Dr. Tasha Brooks, who's the senior research lead, and Morgan Murphy. So we're ready to sort of rock and roll and move forward with Indigenous businesses and connect them with business schools, agriculture, medicine, engineering, to see how we can light up research collaborations. Now, I mentioned NACA. So we go back to 2019, where I met with the AFI GMs, pitched this idea. Letter of support, the Prosperity Forum in 23-24, we brought forward the National Indigenous Strategy. We took out an ad last year, so we're not strangers. In fact, I got something to show you. Recognize them? NACA socks. Now you should see the underwear.
Oh my God.
You get the point that really you didn't hear about Luminary because we didn't want to raise expectation once again, only to disappoint our community. So now with this federal investment, we're now leveraging funds. McConnell Fund has put money into things like growing the Indigenous seaweed industry, and you heard those ladies speak this morning. Wasn't that exciting? You talk about agri-food, artificial intelligence, carbon markets. This is where we need to be innovating today. Next slide. So this is the ecosystem. And really it's about how to harness this and pull tens of millions of dollars and pull them towards the ecosystem, but and moving beyond what I call the romantic and cosmetic side of innovation. How are we harnessing artificial intelligence in tourism, labor markets? What's the good, the bad, the ugly with data sovereignty and data management? How do we look at trade units internationally? How are we harnessing and developing agri-foods, medicines, and then being part of that economic innovation so that we can commercialize research as those youth we're talking about to really grow prosperity. So that's the ecosystem. It's fun. Next slide is we're doing a survey right now of all the business schools in Canada. We're going to create a benchmark of what they're currently doing in terms of curriculum, research. I look at this audience here. Richard said last night, our people don't dream big enough. When I was in Australia, this elder said, when you stop dreaming, you are lost. Children by age 5 in poverty lose hope. They don't dream. All of you are in the dream business. You're making dreams happen. And we can accelerate that by engaging the academic research community to focus on our research priorities, mobilize knowledge, but we don't know what each other's doing. So that's where it's starting. This survey's underway. It closes May 31st. We're going to create the first picture in terms of what's happening. You know, Terri Lynn and I were talking about so much of the content we heard up here. You could be curriculum episodes inside business schools. You could be featured in vignettes in curriculum. And we need to engage all of these students and researchers to see the opportunities to engage and get excited about the power and the impact of what this room is doing. We've got people like Michael and Tasha that are there to support this survey. So that's underway. Let's give them a Question?
All right, another question. So get your phones out again, up to the QR code. We want to know what your understanding of navigating the research structures, research system, research agencies, grant processes, and post-secondary institutions. I know it's a lot, but we want to know, do you have some knowledge? Do you have a good understanding? Or do you have to learn more? And it looks like I Need to Learn More is coming up, and that's part of the work that we're doing to help break down those silos that exist. We know that there's a big demand for information to understand how to access research structure systems and agencies. So good to see those results up there, and looks like we have some work to do for sure. One of the things that we did earlier this year was we had an Indigenous Innovation Summit in Phoenix, Arizona. There was 42 delegates, including business school deans, Indigenous academics, and businesses, NGOs. That happened in the Gila River Indian community in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a great conversation where we were able to hold space and hear from our Indigenous academics and businesses about research opportunities and opportunities to collaborate. We also got to hear from business deans about, what they see as a fit for, or how they want to collaborate with Indigenous communities and businesses. So it was a really good opportunity to hear and listen. Our partner was Northern Arizona State University, and Dr. Manley Begay was our partner in this important summit. And that really helped accelerate knowledge mobilization and knowledge exchange networks. And so what we want to know here is, what are you interested in learning more about? Indigenous economic innovation, sectoral innovation networks, or knowledge and research collaborations? All right, see that people are engaging, love it. Glad that the Slido is working great. It's the first time that we've done it live. So Indigenous economic innovations coming up on the top. Right on. Thank you everybody for voting there. And another thing that we are working on is curriculum collaboration, so attracting and growing Indigenous student business and research talent. And how we're doing that is through curriculum webinars and seminars and training, so Indigenous-informed curriculum protocols, guidelines, episode courses, and case studies. This doesn't exist a lot. I know for myself, I'm an MBA student, and whenever I go to do research, I have a hard time finding good case studies that are Indigenous-led and about Indigenous businesses. So we need to see more of that, because there's a lot of excellent examples in this room just here over the last 2 days. So what we want to do is attract and increase Indigenous businesses and research students. We also want to increase engagement among Indigenous business community, academics, business schools, research agencies, and NGOs.
The curriculum, law schools. When there's a Supreme Court decision, every law school in this country is talking about it the next day. It's in their curriculum. They're doing research on any and all Supreme Court decisions coming down. Shannon and I were involved in the creation of the National Indigenous Economic Strategy, and Jake Taylor, you heard Jacob Taylor, with the institute that's now measuring the progress that we released in 2022. You can find it at nies.ca, and the 107 Calls to Prosperity. First time a strategy was built by Indigenous institutional leaders, not by government. It's exactly what the Royal Commission called for in 1996, that our institutional leaders will be growing and advancing strategies and will be stronger than the politics. And all my political friends agree with this. What's interesting is that the National Indigenous Economic Strategy should be in every business school. They need to know about this. These are the developments that are underway. Whether you're an Indigenous or non-Indigenous student, if you're going to work and be engaged with our economies and our people and our communities, that's the kind of knowledge we want to infuse. Last December, I was invited to participate on an international panel on Indigenous research and management with Jason Mika, fellow friend from New Zealand. Michelle Evans runs the Dilladua School, Emma Olson from up at Brisbane. And again, you here at NACA have been touching on the international opportunities to look at how do we indigenize research opportunities, curriculum, and other opportunities internationally. Next weekend, we're in Waterloo with the ASAC. Ever heard of it? Administrative Sciences Association of Canada. 700 business researchers, management researchers, and about 100 PhDs. We're developing a formal partnership. There's an Indigenous colloquium, and we want to see how we can harness and connect them with you and the Indigenous priorities that you're starting to identify today. This morning you heard about seaweed. Wasn't that exciting? And you know, when they were talking about the microalgae that feed the oysters. So we need to be talking to the agriculture and aquaculture colleges and experts to see how we can fuel up more research around how all that works so that we can really advance not just that business, but we could be growing an Indigenous seaweed industry for Canada. It's an $18 billion industry. Asia leads the way. It's growing about 8% a year. It's now being used in pharmaceuticals, clothing, building bricks, as they mentioned this morning, and they're even putting it into cattle feed to reduce methane production. Guess which country has the highest diversity of seaweed in the world? Canada, 430 species. Who's got the least developed industry in the world? Canada. We could be having seaweed, a cooperative, on the West Coast, in the Arctic with the Inuit, and with the Maliseet, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy people on the East Coast. And then we could be connecting with the Maori, who've been running the aquaculture industry for over 25 years, Richard, right? $500 billion industry. So I get excited as I listen and learn, and there was a lady that flew from Australia all the way to Nanaimo last October, Salima McGuire, and she brought a kelp bowl, and she said, this is a traditional kelp bowl that we use to carry our berries and our water. But now we were able to harness and work with academics to create the intellectual property, and now they're selling kelp food drops that you put on your plants. That's the commercialization of ancient knowledge that they're able then to infuse those profits back into their developments. Next slide. Question. Do you have economic priorities and issues that could be advanced through research, networks, and collaborations? Have you sparked some ideas about ideas or priorities or issues? 100%.
Awesome. That's a great response. Curious to see how many people are, I think there's 26, so that's good in the room. So yes, there are economic priorities and issues that can be advanced through research networks and collaborations. That's what we wanted to hear. While we're wrapping up here, one more question. This is the last one, but which sectors hold the most opportunity for Indigenous-led innovation? We're talking about building knowledge networks, and what we want to understand is, where do we begin? There's a lot of priorities. There's a lot of different interest in each of the communities. So we want to hear from you about where you think the most opportunity for Indigenous-led innovation is. Wow,
I think there's a few more down below in the climate change.
There's a few more if you scroll down, yeah, but I think they're coming up in order. So agriculture and food sovereignty, yeah, that's one of the interesting things is that we are working with the deans of the agriculture schools. So there's 13 of them in Canada, and we do have a relationship with them already that we're building. So interesting to see that the agriculture and food sovereignty is coming up as the #1 in clean energy, not far behind. We know that there's a lot of great work being done in that space from our communities across the country. I worked with Indigenous clean energy, so I'm very excited to see that clean energy does come up as another sector for a lot of innovation opportunity. This is yours.
So, how many of you know our friend Elder Albert Marshall? Mi'kmaq elder talks about two-eyed seeing. How do we value both Western and Indigenous ways of knowing and doing? Not that one is better than the others. How do we harness both to create well-being for everybody? Albert is an innovator. He's an elder. He's keen on achieving new and unprecedented levels of well-being. And so two-eyed seeing is sort of really one of our guiding principles, is that how do we harness and use two-eyed seeing? We now have researchers that are saying they're doing better research because of Indigenous approaches, models, and values. Darcy Bear, Chief Darcy Bear, a Dakota Whitecap, at Phoenix showcased health innovation, where they have X-ray technology from France that's being used to do low X-ray scans of a broken wrist or ankle up north. From NASA, they received the suturing technology that was used to suture an astronaut is now in the Health Innovation Hub that's being tested in northern Saskatchewan. This Health Innovation Hub could become a model for all Canadians. They spend $117 million a year transporting people out of northern Saskatchewan down south for an X-ray that could be done up north. So health, prosperity, jobs, economic growth, they're all connected. And so really, when you think about innovation issues and priorities, we do think in multidisciplinary and what we call holistic models and approaches, because one affects the other. And so really, this is the guiding principles. We want to thank you. Let's do a closing here. I think we've got a couple more about the change we want to see.
Yeah, so working with Indigenous business leaders, business schools, and faculties to change our story, to take advantage of the opportunities that exist with research and change the way that it's done so that it's actually benefiting our communities and it's not extractive and it's done in a way that aligns with our Indigenous values and knowledge, so that we can really harness that and leverage that, the power of research to create prosperous communities. And that's exactly what we're talking about here for the last 2 days. So thank you for having us and for...
Go back to that one.
Oh, sorry.
So, no more research on problems. There's a whole industry out there making money on our problem. And they're recycling the same Stats Canada data. We need research on solutions, on innovation. So keep that in mind. And you heard, of course, Pam and Clarence Campeau Foundation. I want to acknowledge Clarence Campeau. He was a mentor of mine. And he breathed innovation. He challenged policies and programming structures. And so when you think innovation, think more broadly in terms of how we can change and create new econometric models. Shannon last night was talking about we need to do a study about the power of what all of you are doing and how do we measure the impact. And there are these economists that do these econometric exercises that we could be harnessing here at NACA to really show the value-added impact of generations to come. So, like I said, focus on innovation and solutions and models. I think we got one more question.
Yeah, one more question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how important is Indigenous-led research for achieving economic reconciliation? So 1 being less important and 5 being very important. I'll give you a couple seconds to get your phones up and let us know how important this Indigenous-led research is for economic reconciliation.
We should have added a question about, I was the guy up there dancing last night. We should have a question, how many would like to see more dancing next year at NACA's event, which is May 5th to the 7th here at Lac LeMay? Hands up. Gene, we're going to get you out dancing, man. All right.
All right.
It's on.
So thank you everybody for having us. Our contact information is up there, and we also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn. We recently launched it, so Luminary Network, so where we'll be posting information about what we're doing and where we are over the next few months. So thank you again, Walalan.
Thank you.